I haven't used Zoom in a long time. Actually, that's not true. I haven't. I'm on Zooms all the time. I just don't. I'm not. I'm never the host. So I have to see if I can figure this out a
Yeah.
bit. Roqayah, it's nice to chat with you finally. I'm a big fan of your show, Delete Your Account. You are in Lebanon right now. We appreciate you coming to the show. A lot of things are going on. Just before we get started, for people who don't know your work, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, the show. I'll link to it obviously in the podcast comments too.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on today. So I am Lebanese from South Lebanon. I'm currently in Lebanon. I'm a freelance writer. I'm writing for Splinter most often nowadays, but I spend my time in the Shia, the Dahieh, and the South, the Jnub, writing about Lebanon. I've been here back home for about 3.5 months now. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'm also preparing to work on a documentary about Israel's occupation of South Lebanon and the killing of my aunt. So that's just a bit about me. I also, as you mentioned, am the co-host of Delete Your Account with my uh, friend Kumar Salahi.
We have to have you guys both on. I mean, I know a lot's going on for you, but
Yeah,
we haven't done a proper collab. So I appreciate
yeah, we
this.
should.
And so I guess at the outset, I want to say, first of all, how are you doing? There's a lot that's happened in the last week
Yeah,
from this
yeah, in the
insane,
last hour.
yeah, in the last hour. So just give us a
Yeah.
sense of what's going on your end.
Yeah, so I'm okay, relatively okay. I'm not one to I don't really get afraid that easily despite everything going on around me. I spend, like I said, I spend my days between the Shia and the Dahi and the Jnub, and I haven't been able to go down to the south because of obviously them bombing our village. One of one of the first villages hit during the height of the strikes, the latest strikes on South Lebanon were in Iklim al which is the municipality that my village is like the head of, I guess you could say. But I was in the Dahieh a day ago and it was eerily quiet, even though it was only 8 p.m. There's usually a lot of noise, a lot of people around, but for obvious reasons, it was very quiet. And now it's incredibly difficult to go out there, so I haven't been able to, though I've tried. Not many people are willing to take you over there right now for obvious reasons. But other than that, the news today is what has hit people the hardest, which is the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah. I was sitting in a cafe when the news broke, and the first thing was the sound of people crying. That was the first thing. And the next thing was hearing a man yell out, "My father has died," because that's how close Sayyid Hassan was to many of us. Um, but one thing I do want to say, while many people, not too many, because his mourners outnumber his detractors, is something that Mao said, which is that death is going to befall all of us, whether we like it or not. And though death may befall all men alike, it may be weightier than Mount Tai or lighter than a feather. So to die for the people is weightier than Mount Tai, but to work for the fascists and to die for the exploiters and oppressors is lighter than a feather. And the assassination of Sayyid Hassan is going to change the world as we know it, whether people believe it or not. But what it has not changed is the Hizb's reaction, Hezbollah's reaction. They are still targeting Israeli settlements as we speak. That has not changed, and it will not change because their red line has been very clear from the beginning that we will not submit, we will not bow, and we will not separate ourselves from Gaza or its resistance.
I appreciate that really powerful introduction. I'm profoundly sorry to you, everybody around you, your communities. I think this I think this act obviously is something that was intended to inflict pain, which it did. I think this is
Yeah,
what the Israelis and imperialists in general excel at. And the symbols, they're really good at going after symbols because symbols are powerful.
absolutely.
So in some ways, I wonder too, in like a moment like this, is that like I always return Like my brain always returns to like the eternal question as like the great man of history theory, is that like what
Right.
moves history forward? Is it individuals or the is it the uniting of individuals? I mean, that's a chicken and the egg question too in and of
Right.
itself, because
Yeah.
people, a
Yeah.
leader like Syed Hassan obviously unites people in a way that that scares and frightens like imperialists, because this is
Right.
precisely what they're afraid of. This kind of what Hezbollah represents, and what it is this indigenous resistance movement. And I just
Right.
recorded an episode with Kareem Makdizi and I kind of a question
Mm.
that on 2006 and the kind of the ghosts of 2006. And I'll be honest, I've always harbored the feeling that, like, I wonder, are they crazy enough to go after Nasrallah? And when it happened, I actually didn't believe it. I thought it was a psyop. And I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
totally a psyop. This is what they do every time. And, now that it hit us this morning, just like a few hours ago, I've been in shock, obviously. But I think ultimately, like, what my brain sort of returns to, as maybe it's, our haters would call it copium. But ultimately, this question is like, what does a
Yeah.
single individual do in something as huge as this, namely the liberation of Palestine
Right.
and the waging of like a war against a colonial entity? So I know that's a big
Right.
ass question. It's not even a question, but like at this moment, are we the lock between symbolic power of a leader and the material role of someone like Hassan Nasrallah in a larger resistance movement? And I guess that's what I'm
Mm.
trying to sort of wrestle with.
Yeah, like I want what people need to realize, in the words of Ghassan Kanafani, who was also assassinated, Palestinian journalist, writer. He said bodies fall, not ideas. And before there was Sayyid Hassan, there was Abbas al-Musawi, who was assassinated by Israel along with his wife and child in the Nabatiyya in 1992. Then came Sayyid Hassan. Also before Abbas al-Musawi, who was leading the Amal movement, Imam Musa Sadr, who was never found. And then came Nabi Berri. So all these people are getting killed. They're getting assassinated. They know that this is the end. They know that martyrdom is the end. But they also know that other people will replace them, oftentimes who are even stronger than those that came before. And Sayyid Hassan was evidence of that.
What are your memories of Syed Hassan? What are some things that come to mind in a moment like this?
Well, specifically the liberation of South Lebanon, the freeing of the prisoners who were freed by other southern Lebanese by hand, people who were tortured in a myriad of ways by Israelis. They walked in our villages. They killed our people. My aunt Huda, God rest her soul, was killed under the olive trees in Arab Salim. She was only 15 years old. She died in my uncle's arms, and my first vivid memory is the liberation of South Lebanon. Without the resistance, there would be no liberation. There would be no South Lebanon that we know today. That is the first thing that comes to mind. And then the what happened in 2006, the first, and in 2000 they were the first Arab army to ever defeat Israel. We kicked them out of our villages. No one had ever done that before. He gave us victory, and not just him, all of the fighters gave us victory. It is a culture of resistance that goes well beyond Sayyid Hassan. We're mourning today. We Grief is a normal human feeling that we're going to feel. This is a great man who gave his entire life up, not just for the Lebanese people, but for Palestine. He did not live a normal day in his life, whether that was whenever he lost his son Hadi, who was also a fighter who was martyred, or him losing his life the way that he did whenever he was assassinated. This is something, it's a person that cannot be replaced, but at the same time, we remain just as determined and just as steadfast to stay with Gaza and to stay with Palestine, because we have a saying, kill us under every rock and stone. We will not abandon Palestine.
I think that's really important to remember at a moment like this. I think there's a lot of shock and rage and disappointment and disgust. Like, I'll be honest, a lot of people are messaging me and saying like, what the fuck, Iran, as if like I had anything to do with it. But like I understand, like they're just
Yeah, for
articulating
these
that
look
frustration.
for these people, it's a game. I honestly
Yes.
think that I'm
Yeah.
so sick and tired of people trying to sit down armchair commentators who are saying, oh, they don't know what this community looks like. They don't know what our people look like. They don't know what is happening on the ground. Like the way that the Dahieh is talked about as if it's some horrific place. You can't, there are people that are still saying you can't walk around in the Dahieh. A woman can't walk around. I'm a woman and I go there every fucking day. And I'm in what people would call, like, I wear a t-shirt and jeans. I dress the way that I want. No one says anything to me. And I'll never understand this kind of mentality that is still so fucking pervasive. I'm in my 30s now, and it sounds the same way that it did back in the Bush era, the way that they talk about Arabs and Muslims, that we're just all a bunch of fucking barbarians who don't know how to treat anybody. And you can't go into these communities and take photographs like we're animals in a zoo, but you're more than welcome to come. But the way that the Dahieh is treated, they turn us into unpeople. We're not human beings. So kill us. Just down our residential buildings, kill our women and children. It's okay because they're not human beings to you.
And part of this strategy too is to show, like by going after this important leader, is that it's to show that even the
Right.
special people among you, we can kill you. It's to just demonstrate. It's a
Yeah.
colonial way of thinking, of saying we need to flex on you. But like in this
Yeah.
moment,
It's
killing
psychological
the
warfare.
it is, and it's not because like these structures that they've built, like these command and leadership structures, they're replaced. Even right now, they've just announced it. It's Hisham Sefadin, who's just been
Yeah.
announced. And like Hashim, sorry, it's Hashim. I spelled his name wrong. I actually know
Passion,
very,
safe, and dean. Right.
yeah, I actually know very little about him. But before we can sort of get into that, I just want to get a sense though, is that like the sentiments that you're seeing around though, is that there must like, are you seeing a kind of sectarian response to this more than just online?
Well, I haven't personally seen anything like that. Maybe once, and that was before the assassination of Sayyid Hassan. There are people in Lebanon. We're all very well aware of these people who say, "What are they?" There's a saying, "Shu khasna?" What is? Why do we have anything to do with Gaza and Palestine? What is it? Any of our business is what the phrase means. Like, why are we getting involved? And these people will never understand that this occupier is not just committing war crimes against the people of Gaza. They have no empathy. They're very, let's just be honest with you. These people are very selfish. They want to live their lives in a very bourgeois fashion. They want to go get their Botox, go have their surgeries, make sure all their little clinics are still open, go have a smoke, relax, and do whatever the fuck they want while everybody else suffers around them. They could not care any less than they do now about Gaza than they currently do. But at the same time, they don't understand that Israel is not satisfied just letting the blood flow in Gaza. They don't understand that our turn would have been coming whether we knew it or not. So yeah, and they're the same people who say whenever the Dahieh is hit, they say, "Oh well, it was the Dahieh, not Beirut," as though it's a different territory altogether, because there is that mentality among some Lebanese that we are very different from them. Southern Lebanese, oh, they're from the Jnoub, they're not like us. People in the Dahieh, oh, they're from the slums of the Dahieh, they're not like us. So yeah, I have seen that, not very much, but it exists and we're all very well aware of it.
I was in Lebanon in 2004, and I
Mm.
remember the trip from the airport to, I was staying in Burja Barajni. I was like doing this like, this
Oh yeah,
project, and I was staying in the camp. And
yeah,
I remember driving from the airport in the taxi. It was like late at night. And like that route
mm.
takes you through, like you see what South Beirut is in that route. I mean, that was
Yeah,
2004 too. That was before 2006 and before obviously now. So it
yeah,
was like it was a different beast. And this was a vast like swath of people, and most of them are displaced
right,
from the south, right?
exactly, yeah,
So in a sense, there's a strange mirrored history between the history of Gaza, which is a collection of refugees, like sort of put into this relatively small geographic space, forced into it in some way. And there's a sort of strange
Exactly.
like parallelism to Dahieh too, to South Beirut, and how this is a place of refuge. And there's an irony in both of those things, because gathering Palestinians and gathering these people that you oppress will of course help them unite and like make them stronger. So in some ways, and
Yeah.
this was kind of like the import of my argument of my conversation with Karim, is that these actions that the Zionists and the imperialists take to weaken Lebanese resistance, these backfire, and they've historically backfired, and this one will
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the Hizb is still continuing to fire into occupied Palestine as we speak currently. And this is the reality of what we're dealing with and what Sayyid Hassan described earlier before his assassination. Men will fall, um, leadership may crumble, but the fighting will go on. The way that they've attacked Lebanon is very similar to Gaza and what Israel is attempting to do. I was there for the funeral that was attacked a week ago, I believe, and I was also there whenever Israel began the pager attacks, and one of the children that ended up being martyred, Muhammad Ganj. I was there for that attack. It happened on our street. And then I was there whenever the walkie-talkie incident happened at the funeral. I was meters away from the ambulance near the incident. So I mean, this is something we are witnessing firsthand every single day, and the bloodletting in the Dahieh has only gotten worse. And I'm very optimistic, but bad things are going to happen until Israel is reined in, and not just reined in, but dismantled. There is no future in our region for an entity like this, not before and certainly not now.
What can you tell us about Dahia? Like what's the people like? I mean, when I was there, I remember going around. I mean, I was in Haret. I would walk around Haret and like
Yeah,
revel in
hard to
all the
commit.
computer stores and like the free software. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I could get all the software I ever dream of. It was all bootleg software, and
Yeah.
it was like what I would do. But
Yeah.
that area has been pummeled. So that was 2004. That was 20 years ago. I mean, that's insane. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That area has been pummeled so hard multiple times since then. And yet people return and they rebuild.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Harad Harak yesterday. I was there's a very nice cafe that I go to and smoke and drink coffee, and there was nobody there but me because of everything going on. And I'm the type that if something happens, I'm not just I'm the type that I'm not afraid, and if I'm able to go there reasonably, I'll go. But right now, it's not safe to go anywhere near the Dahieh because we just don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes they're doing the whole, oh, we're being very merciful, the merciful killing. We're giving you half an hour to leave everything you know and go somewhere else. Also, we're going to be bombing the fuck out of your hospitals, the ambulances. And, oh, there's a kindergarten nearby. That's okay. We're going to bomb in that vicinity too. But the Dahieh is the people of the Dahieh are beautiful people. They're kind-hearted people. They're very humble people. I don't know what else to tell you other than anytime I go to the Dahieh, I never feel unsafe. Not a moment in my life have I ever felt like something's gonna happen to me, someone's going to do something to me. No, it's a poor. It's what I say this in Arabic. Hay fa'ira, bas fiya hayat, meaning it's a poor neighborhood, but it has life. There is life in the Dahieh. It's beautiful, and it's a very resistant and steadfast people who, anytime I interview them, they want to emphasize to me always that yes, while we might leave our homes, do not tell people that we're afraid. We're only afraid for for each other, but we're not afraid. Internally, we know that this is our path, this is our destiny. The Allah katab katab, whatever God wrote for us has been written for us, and we are very faithful and devoted to the path of resistance, not just for ourselves, but for the people of Palestine. That's why all our martyrs are dedicated towards the path to Jerusalem.
I just think of like the history of violence that has been like inscribed on this small, beautiful, like diverse, harmonious country, Lebanon, and like The fact that
Yeah,
like that so-called civil war like was fed by all the imperialist actors in our region and was part and was
absolutely.
and like how it was in some ways a dirty war as much as the Syria war was a dirty war
Exactly, exactly.
because
That
they need to keep.
sectarianism is the lifeblood of
Yes,
imperialism. Like that's
yes.
how it has really unwound our region. Because I was never raised I okay, I'm Shia. I'm from South Lebanon, but I was never raised to with any kind of sectarian mentality where you're this way and they're that way and you can't communicate. Like it's very foreign to us. And imperialism has spread this vile disease of sectarianism throughout the region, most recently in Syria, and we're seeing the the results of it all around us.
And I think ultimately too is that there's a weird way that the this all of the sort of Orientalist fantasies about Lebanese Christians specifically, that they are this like,
Yeah,
marooned like representatives of the West. And then you have all those games that,
right.
like the right wing in Lebanon play of, oh, I'm not Arab, I'm Phoenician.
How many of these people would be shocked at how many Christians love, not just support, but actually love Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan? They don't know anything about our region. They don't. They think that it's very black and white Christians. They're very westernized. They go drinking and clubbing and they're like us. You know what I mean? They love bikinis. You like bikinis? Oh, they love that. They drink alcohol. You like alcohol? They're not like these Muslim savages who don't know what Western life is like and are so deprived and their women are like it's pure unadulterated Orientalism. They don't know anything about our country, and they frankly don't want to.
It's the Paris of the Middle East. Didn't you know that? It's Paris.
Yeah,
It's just like Paris. I mean, this
yeah, it's
like
Paris.
Lebanon, like nowhere else in like
I find that insulting, by the way.
it is. It's a
I don't
huge
not
insult.
what you said, but when it yeah, it's a huge I would never want to be compared to Paris.
Ew,
I'm sorry.
Paris is a shithole compared to Beirut.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
oh my God, Paris is vile. And here's the thing is that because Beirut is so special, because Lebanon is so special, because it resists, and because the people are so strong, they are made to suffer. And I just think
Absolutely.
of like people like your parents' age, they've only ever known war. Like they've only ever known war.
Yeah.
Like that is so cruel, like to steal people's
Yeah.
development away. And I just like and this assassination is just another moment in that long history of imperialist crimes against Lebanon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we won't be deterred. I hope people don't take we're a nation that, especially Shia, we're known for mourning. We have no shame in mourning, whether it's Sayyid Hassan or Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. We don't have an issue with mourning, but we grieve and we rise up stronger than ever. And I hope people understand that this isn't just me saying it. I'm yesterday, whenever I was sitting here, the sound of the strikes on the Dahieh were the loudest I have ever heard in my life. Those 8 to 10 airstrikes, and I wasn't fearful. I knew what it was. I said, okay, that's not Jidar al That's not a sonic boom. They're hitting the Dahieh, and that was the first time they did it without their so-called warning. But we know at the end of the day that there is no future for us if Israel exists, period. Not we can't live as neighbors like Jordan wants to, sending them fucking goddamn tomatoes, or Turkey having military ties with Israel, or any of these other what we would call jarab scabs in Arabic who want to have their you know treaties and what have you. The Palestinians want 2 states. No, that we do not want any of it. You cannot live alongside an entity which occupies, which has produced nothing but like the most depraved crimes against humanity. There's no living with it. We want 1 state, and that state is Palestine, and we will not give up no matter what happens. If we Another saying is, if you turn us to crumbs, we will still rise stronger than ever, and we believe that wholeheartedly. So you can kill Sayyid Hassan, Allah yarhamu, you can kill as many leaders as you want, but you cannot kill the idea that we follow and the principles. Our currency has always been dignity, something that Israelis will never understand.
And I think that's why Lebanon gets hit so hard because I mean obviously it's
Yeah,
because it's one of the neighbors, but it's because they're in a lot of ways the emptiness of their own project, that like the moment they hear one
absolutely.
siren, 30% of their population get on a plane with their other passports and flee, because
Or
ultimately
they're
Zionism to
injuring themselves running
yeah,
to their bunkers.
but like, because ultimately Zionism to them is a life of a convenience. It's a
Right.
resort. It's a resort. It's like a cheap life. It's a fictional kind of power that's derived from total dependence on an imperial entity that hates you, that already hates you. Like,
Absolutely. And it's
to be a Zionist in
absolutely,
this
it's a
world is to
society of
rely on
monsters,
the
wallah.
people on to be a Zionist in this world is to rely on the people who have hated you the most throughout history to give you
Absolutely.
their tools of death to inflict upon people who have never wronged you historically. I mean, this is the crazy
Right.
inverted life of of our region, is that these Europeans who
Right.
arrived decided to remap this entire world and try to turn people against each other, and succeeded in doing that in some different ways, drawing up all these fake
Yeah,
countries,
but
installing like these comprador
right.
regimes to do their dirty work, and at the end
Right.
of the day expect you to like kowtow, and are shocked when they see people resist and they're good at it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to reiterate for everyone is that they have tried so hard to influence our region with sectarianism, but one thing that you should remember throughout all of this is that the Shia, Yemen, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Shia nations or Shia groups are the ones who stood alongside their Sunni brothers in Palestine to defend Gaza.
That's a good way of ending things. I appreciate your time,
Yeah.
Roqayah. We'll keep this short. I know you have a lot of going. I mean, I guess for you, maybe one final question, but like, what are your plans?
Well, I'm staying here. I live here now, and I plan to what and I hope other people here will do it too, to go donate blood and to help with emergency services wherever you can, and to stay as safe as possible, throughout all this and keep reporting from the ground here.
Yes, please stay safe. And we're thinking of you, and we're thinking of the people of Lebanon. And I thank you for
Thank
what you're
you.
doing. It's like it's incredible, because there's so much of an insane like embargo, like discursive embargo around Hezbollah specifically. Like literally, if you like hold their
Right.
flag in places in the West, you get arrested. Or if you like,
Yeah.
I just think of like the man they just killed. Like if you put his face on Instagram, like they ban it. Like they're so afraid of his
Yeah.
face. Like
Yeah.
that's why like they
But
killed
like
him.
in Absolutely, but like Thomas Sankara said, while revolutionaries as individuals can be killed, you cannot kill ideas, and our principles will not fade. And nothing changes. Nothing changes. We're still committed to Gaza and more than before.